Can you tell us the whole story of how you sold It Takes Three? Who did you give the script to first?
So the story of how the movie came to be, I have a I have a limited perspective, but the sort of broad strokes are that. So I wrote it on Spec, right? I assume the viewers know that terminology. So it was a Spec script that I wrote. I wrote it, and I do think that this is sort of important. I wrote it very specifically because I had had enough sort of data, and not like the most hard data, but more sort of anecdotal data that I had a lot of people that I knew who were looking for something like this. Because I put that out there because I think sometimes specs are very, very hard, right? Like most of the, like it's constantly sort of evolves, but like traditionally, like selling something on spec is a very difficult thing. It just doesn't happen very often, right? Like specs are very useful to get other jobs or again, to get representation. They don't very often actually get sold. And even when they do get sold, they don't very often get produced, right? It's not something that happens every day. And so for me, when I'm writing something on spec, I want to at least go into it knowing, okay, when this is done, I know through what relationships I have, that I've got at least a handful of people who would potentially be interested in something like this, or that I know, or I've gotten feedback from my representation that there's a handful of people that they know would be interested in this. I think it's, again, you're very brave if you do it completely in a vacuum, right? And I've done that also, but it's just not my like preference. So I knew that like, because again, my sort of relationships with mostly with people in digital, and there was this sort of push at the moment for this sort of idea of like influencer driven features, right? And most influencers are of a certain age, right? Like they're like teen or like, young 20 something. And and the sort of and the sort of material that then people want to produce starring them has a sort of like you know it tends to be like a more limited like window, right? Like they're not going to make the new Terminator starring like an influencer yet. They might tomorrow. But so and and so basically knowing that, I was like, oh, okay, like these are the people I know. These are the sort of things that they're looking for. What do I feel like is a story that like checks all those boxes, and also would be a good story, right? I I was drawn, and I was not the only one with this idea because literally there was something like, I want to say like four major adaptations of Cyrano de Bergerac set in high school that came out in the last couple of years. So a lot of people had this idea. It was definitely in the air. But to me, I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense because this adaptation really has the potential to say something that previous iterations of it did not really have to say, right? Specifically with the sort of like social media component and the sort of idea of like how effectively you could actually catfish someone, and people do this, right? Like the story of Cyrano, to me, honestly, felt more prescient, like, and important now than it did in its inception. In its inception, it was kind of just an interesting, quirky story, but now it felt like really sort of important and really like had a lot to say. And so I felt like, oh, this feels like it checks off like a lot of boxes worth doing. And so then I wrote it, and I gave it to my manager at the time, who shopped it around to the relationships he had or the relationships I had, and a production company like came on board, and then ultimately it ended up in the hands of Gunpowder and Sky, who then ended up producing it.
And how did you have your manager already?
So my manager, who was also a producer on the film, his name is Kevin Herrera, and Kevin and I had been working together because at the time I had my own digital production company, and I had been basically, one of the things that I was doing was trying to, it started as a very sort of one-man band doing all sorts of just random jobs for whoever sort of situation. But as it sort of grew, I was able to parlay that into actually doing like digital series, right? Either for like branded corporate partners, like it was pretty funny, but like one of my biggest clients was Playboy, because Playboy literally at the time, people might not remember, but they were trying to do a whole initiative to like go non-nude, and they were like trying to rebrand. And so we were doing like a bunch of like sort of sketch comedy for them in different shows, and other things like that. Like we helped do post-production on a Logan Paul series. And then as those opportunities came up, that then I knew Kevin through like mutual friends, and as those sort of opportunities came up, it then allowed, he was able to sort of come in and help be like, oh, okay, how can we grow this now, right? Because like, okay, so you did happen to get like this one, but like, I can help you get like more. I can help get you more shows. I can like, help connect you with more of those sort of opportunities. And so we started working together in that capacity. But he also was trying to put together these sort of influencer, or ended up again not going that direction, like young adult driven features. And that's how that sort of relationship developed. But that again, to me, is why I'm always sort of a proponent of like, you don't know what, like, it's important to have your goals and know what you would like to do, right? Like I never stopped wanting to write and have features and like, and do those sort of projects. But I honestly don't know that I would have gotten the opportunity to like, to do like a feature film or have my spec be like sold or produced if I was trying to go through a very traditional route. Maybe. I mean, I will never know, but I do feel like, again, from my perspective, there's always something to be about like, okay, like this is another sort of street that people aren't taking. And so as long as I know where I want to go, like, and I'm having those discussions with the people, like I'm like, my like professional like counterparts and peers, like those opportunities like still like exist, not always where you're looking, I guess.
Sure. Do you take Fountain?
Sometimes.
Okay, Fountain's backed up a lot. They always say that's an alternative. Yeah.
It's always evolving. that's the, and I will say that that's like even like that's a joke, but it is. It's always changing. And I think that it's important to like remember that too, because like again, the way that project came together, would it come together like that again today? Maybe, I don't know.
That's true.
I'm like if you asked me like 100%, would that happen again? No, I don't think. Like again, things always are like literally like He's All That with Allison Ray also came out like last month. Like things always like similar things do like happen, but you don't, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but Allison Ray is a TikTok star, right? And like when I was like writing like It Takes Three, there's that wasn't a thing. So I think that it's always moving very quickly. And it behooves everyone to pay attention to that and to not think that something that worked. I do think it's not necessarily the most savvy move to go like, oh, well, this is how like Quentin Tarantino did it. Yes, it is. In 1990,
Sure.
like I wouldn't. I don't know. The odds of it happening like that same way again are not like great because it's just an entirely different environment, you know.
Where were you when you got the news that the script was sold?
I don't know. I'm sure I was at my office. I'm sure I was doing work. It was very exciting and it was very cool. I think it was very interesting to me because again, my digital company was my full-time job. I don't know that I ever really like relished in it as much as like I might have been otherwise, because just literally I was on productions and I had things to do. I do, with the caveat of, I do think it's always really important to celebrate whatever small wins you get. I feel like there's so much sort of emphasis on if you don't achieve the final stage, right? That like everything you did, all the work, it doesn't like matter. And there's so many steps along the way that are like ridiculously huge accomplishments, like that you might not even recognize as like big accomplishments. And like, but you should, you know. I feel like it's very exciting when you've literally like on the list of 10,000 items, you finally like cross like number 10,000. But not every project goes there, and that doesn't mean that if you got to like number like 8,000, that all of that was a bad use of time or that's not worth celebrating. There's all sorts of very positive things that happen along the way in ways that you might not even understand in the moment, right? Like how they'll like pay off later or like or why they're important. That's something that I do like, I really like believe in a lot is like, again, like celebrate everything that's a step. Some people are don't count your chickens before they're hatched. I don't care. If they never hatch, I still got some awesome eggs, and I'm really excited about my eggs. They don't turn into chickens, they don't turn into chickens. I'm still gonna I'm still gonna feel positive about where it is right now.